Hi, I'm Capt Frank Lanier, a retired Coast Guard officer and SAMS Accredited Marine Surveyor with over 40 years of experience in the maritime and diving industry. I've amassed literally thousands of photos of all the bad things I've found on boats during my career as a Marine Surveyor. So what we're going to do today is take a look at some of my favorites. We're going to take a look at each picture. We're going to discuss why they're evil, and we're going to discuss what you need to do to correct it. So hop in, buckle up, keep your arms and legs inside the car at all times as we take a carnival-like ride tour through the cavalcade of owner-induced perversions that I like to call Capt Frank's Sea Chest of Horror. Sea Chest of Horror. So what we have here is a perfect example of why vinyl-coated chain is not a good thing to use, particularly in the saltwater environment. The vinyl coating, while it's easier on the deck finish and stuff, it can hide corrosion. The water seeps underneath the vinyl coating and can start eating away at the chain and corroding it, just as is shown here. This is a pretty extreme example of the corrosion that can take place underneath that vinyl coating. A more insidious example would be the corrosion that occurs underneath that vinyl coating, but it is out of sight. In other words, you can't really see much corrosion, maybe a few specks of rust or something in the vinyl coating, while the chain itself is being slowly eaten away. So what we're going to look at in this section are a few owner-induced perversions to the superstructure of a vessel. In this example, you'll see you've got a sailboat that's been raised to the deck level, and we don't really need anything fancy, so we're just going to put this truck camper on top and bolt her down, and it'll be just as good as new. The problem with radically altering the vessel's superstructure is it can become unstable. A perfect example would be shown here, where the owner has added a nice cabin to the vessel, but it is so out of proportion to the hull that the vessel now becomes unstable, particularly in heavier weather. Need another good example? Well, here you go. So the story here is the owner of a recently purchased used boat that I surveyed found what he described as an extra heavy-duty flare gun left on board by the seller. Sweet, this thing looks beefy enough to take down a bull elephant, so it should work just great, he said. I'll just head down to the local S-Mart and buy me some flares to go with it. Had the new owner needed to use his new-to-him flare gun in an emergency, he would have quickly discovered that the flares are incompatible. The flares he purchased are for a 12-gauge gun, while the gun he has is a 25mm launcher. So in this section, we're going to be looking at possible signs that the boat that you're contemplating buying has possibly been submerged or had water trapped in the hull at some point while it was hauled. If you look at this photo here, which is out of a mid-sized sailboat, you can see that the varnish or the wood is damaged up to a point about 7 inches from the cabin sole. This indicates that the cabin has been flooded at some point, and it's very easy to tell in this case, but sometimes it's not quite so easy. There's also a scum line in this photo, although it's not quite as obvious as the previous one. If you look above the hose runs here, you can see the scum line running along the bilge. And in fact, if you look at the battery located in the top right, you can actually see the scum line on the battery itself. So it was about midway of the battery is the height that the water level reached. Extreme mold and mildew would be another possible indication that the vessel has been sunk, or at least partially sunk. And finally, here's another good example of a scum line that indicates that a vessel is either taken on water and sank or partially sank, or in this case, the boat was hauled and the cockpit scuppers were clogged with leaves, so water overflowed and went into the bilge, and this is the level that it got up to before it was discovered.